A very good evening to all our viewers, and welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toibon Jabela, your host. Let's look at some of the headlines in Thursday's edition of Namibian Sun. Don't fear for Trans-Namib, says Finance Minister Ipumbushimi, amid fear, or as a matter of fact, amid efforts by creditors to have the company liquidated. The Minister of Finance is saying such plans will not be entertained, and that government is committed to keeping the company alive for its strategic importance to the economy. Also in Grootfontein, the CEO, Kisco Simvula, showed up at work on Monday and had a confrontation with councillors and other senior managers at the municipality who believe that he is on suspension and should be nowhere near the building. Also, there are questions over Namport's announcement that they will lease out the container terminal at Walvis Bay. There are people who believe that there are capable Namibian entities that can do that. And Namport is saying that they are seeking a foreign operator to run the port for 25 years. Tonight in the studio, we are welcoming back Chief Activist, or Activist in Chief rather, of the Affirmative Repositioning movement, that is Dr. Job Amupanda, who has been very, very busy about allegations of corruption at Parliament. Doc, thank you very much for making time. I know you are a busy man. I've been looking for you for a long time, and I'm a bit surprised that I am able to sit with you here. We were busy mourning the death of Jesus over the long weekend, and you were mourning the death of moral uprightness. What happened at Parliament?
Well, what happened at Parliament is a representation of how our society have degenerated. Parliament is run by an 80-year-old who runs it like a village. And yes, people look at what is happening at Parliament only in terms of the administrative machinery. I don't think the Secretary of the National Assembly runs the National Assembly. The 80-year-old Speaker of the National Assembly runs even the administration. He is very busy with his hands there. He's checking where the butter is and sometimes taking the sugar into the milk and then the salt and put everybody must eat. And unfortunately, what has happened at Parliament now is the Speaker, Kwarongo Shipiriri, and now put a lot of things there, and he dumped it to the poor lady who's now running the National Assembly. Yeah. That is in a general context, but what specifically has happened is that it's not just, before we even come to the specific amount that are missing and all those things, it's the representation of degeneration of the highest order. You must remember, when the Constitution says that all power shall vest in the people of Namibia who shall exercise it through democratic institution, and then the doctrine of separation of powers, naming 3 institutions, one of those institutions is the National Assembly. If we have seen corruption and corruption cover up at Grootfontein, for instance, where we understand and accept the amount of degeneration, not that it's acceptable, but it's understandable. But at the National Assembly, this is a week before, or you would see people summoned by the National Assembly, by the Public Accounts Committee, to answer questions on corruption, yet at the same time they are covering corruption. It's a dreadful state of affairs. It represents the degeneration of the moral fiber of our society. Everybody's supposed to be alarmed. I'm actually shocked that the leaders of our country, including the president. They never expressed an opinion about what is happening. And of course, I'm told the Speaker of Parliament never returned. He's just at home. That's why you see a lot of
Lydia Candido.
No, Kasingo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because the speaker is unable to show his face to the public. He's just at home, giving phone calls and things like that. It's a terrible state of affairs. Something that should not have happened in the first place. Before we even get to the details, we need to be able to explain to everybody, to your viewers and people at home, that our country is sinking, and it requires brave men and women to stand up and say, no, the country cannot sink under our watch. We cannot allow a situation like that. But obviously what has happened at Parliament when we're doing our research is that it's a mere tip of an iceberg. I am part of those parliamentary WhatsApp groups through different numbers. And as they discuss, they don't know that I'm in those groups. And I will not disclose with whose number I'm in those WhatsApp groups. But you can see total confusion even among 104 members of Parliament in various WhatsApp groups, how they are discussing and say, no, we are not even aware. Some of them, of course, were aware of this corruption. And in fact, when we put them at notice, one of them in those WhatsApp groups were saying, I think he is referring to Toivon Jebela. So you knew about Toivon and Jebela. Yeah. So clearly we need to give direction to this country. And in giving direction to this country, we may need to realize that we may not rely on the very established institutions, unfortunately.
Yeah. So in this case, Doc, and it's a good point that you created context there. You spoke about how public institutions are summoned to Parliament to account. And now we have Parliament, first denying some of the things that you said, but later sort of made concessions and say, look, this is what transpired. In your case, you've said that publicly, you've said that what has been stated so far, what is in black and white, is even much less than what is actually brewing under. But I think the basic principle here, one of your complaints is that the Anti-Corruption Commission has not been notified as should have been the procedure. Just how delicate is this situation under that circumstance?
It is. I think this is what we must understand. When we put them to notice to be able to clarify, and I said clarify and rectify. Yeah. Because you need to provide clarity and you need to rectify. In other words, something is wrong, so you need to remedy that specific aspect. Check the statement that was released by the National Assembly. Yeah. It doesn't say Peter Kachavivi. It doesn't say Lydia Candido. It doesn't even identify the public relation of Parliament. So this whole story about 1.2 million that we're talking about is by a faceless person. Yeah. Of course, somebody was representing the institution. Does Lydia Candido say it's 1.2 million? Does Peter Kachavivi say it's 1.2 million? I have seen on WhatsApp groups where senior people in the administration of Lydia Candido, who's probably just who's receiving instructions. Of course, she must be held accountable, but I think she doesn't run the National Assembly. The old men that run National Assembly to those. So even when people are talking about 1.2 million, we must make it categorically clear. I'm saying 5 million. Peter Kachavivi have never faced the public to say it's not true. Lydia Candido have never faced the public and say it's not true. Lloyd Kasingo never faced the public and say it's not true. All what we're talking about, the 1.2 million, it's by a faceless person that have released just that thing without even a name of a person who's actually signing off that statement. Yeah. And I can sense a sense of difficulty, because you need, some of these young people are just told, deny, get a phone call and say, how are you? Are you awake? Deny that, deny. And then you can see those young people, I can imagine they are probably typing that statement with tears in their eyes, because they are thinking that this is my career at stake, because those young people know exactly the amount of money that has been stolen. Now imagine knowing how much has been stolen, you are aware who have stolen, You are aware that it's been covered up, but you're given instruction by the boss to write a statement. So what do? You write a statement, but you don't put your name. Yeah, you don't put your name, because ultimately, by now, if there was a name and a face to that statement, that person would have been laughed at by society.
Yeah.
Because it makes a lot of sense that no sane young people would want to throw themselves under the bus. Because if I was the PRO, and knowing exactly what would have happened, I would have written a statement and then just put there the end, issued by Professor Peter Gachavivi, and then release it, so that he's the one who would be saying those things. But we have not, our information have not been disputed.
Yeah, but Doc, that is exactly the issue also. So it's not even, I mean, for me at least as a citizen, numbers of how much has been stolen is even immaterial.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about the principle itself to say there's been fraud, there's been theft, and there are established channels through which these things must be handled. We can't allow people to say, oh, Job stole, but he paid back the money and resigned, and then it ends there. But who goes to jail for similar things, and who has the option of simply resigning and paying back the money? I mean, the fishery people could simply say, look, we stole, but we have your money somewhere. Can we just return it and release it? Yeah.
I mean, it's an insult. I want to give you 3 examples.
Yeah.
First example, there was a lady, Namibian son ran a story. 4 examples actually. Namibian son ran a story of a woman who stole, is it bread or so, in Kavango?
Yeah.
She had an 8-month-old baby. Yeah. And she was denied bail. Yeah. For stealing something to feed the child. There was another, unfortunately, it's in Kavango again. There's a man that apparently stole 20 liters of, he's a police officer, chief inspector.
Yeah.
He was all over the place there. Now, this is a classical thing. And the last 2 examples. At one point, there was a secretary to the National Assembly called Gaubab, I think.
Yeah, Gaumab. I remember the man, yes.
Yes. He hired a car, because he obviously, he have a car allowance, he hired a car. I think the amount that was misappropriated, it was about 5,000 or so. The police case was opened. The ACC was notified.
Yeah.
He was arrested. He was prosecuted, and he was convicted in the National Assembly. Now, in terms of experience and case law, they have no excuse, because they have a template of that. They ought to know, everybody know about that. They ought to have known that something like that has happened. That's one. Number 2, the parliament as it is has two legs: National Council, National Assembly. The difference between the National Council and the National Assembly is that what is the man who's the chairperson of the National Council? That one is just busy with politics.
Yes.
He's not busy with the administration. Namiseb Tosi, who is the secretary of the National Council, is running the machinery there. He's not joking around. Here in the National Assembly, the old man is running he's saying, move the money from this budget to this budget. And this is actually what is basically happening. It's giving instruction. And I'm sure probably Lydia Kandetu may not be aware, or maybe she's aware, but she's treating him as a senior headman. So in senior headmen, when they are deciding that it's Somarongo time, you cannot drink, or you cannot, when they are deciding which cattle must be slaughtered, so you don't really, as a woman, your hands are, But this is what has happened. There were thieves in the National Council, and there were thieves in the National Assembly. Tosi Namiseb goes to the police and report the case. He goes to the ACC. Yeah? An individual is arrested, an individual appears in court, and he goes further and says, no, we are working with Asset Forfeiture Unit. Yeah? Because they've reported the case with the Serious Crime Unit. This is the same parliament. So we shouldn't even say that, no, this is what is basically happening. These guys are colleagues. They're like you have in the office of a president, imagine 2 directors, but they are acting differently. Why is it this other accounting officer of the National Council going to the ACC doing all this thing, but this one is not doing it? This one is also recovering those assets through the asset forfeiture process. But why is this? For the first time, I'm actually told, You see, when you read those instruments, those legal instruments, is that a person is liable. So I'm actually wanting to understand how did you determine that the person is liable?
Yeah.
It means that they were in negotiation with the thief.
Yeah.
And at one point the thief confessed to have done so. So, because my reading of the Pension Act, the one that we are using now, it is not possible for you to deduct money from somebody's pension without their consent.
Yes.
How do you get them to consent? You speak to them, isn't it? You make them maybe write a thing. So even where they've consented, whether it's verbally through your meetings that have minutes, or they've written you an email that you can take my money from there, you actually even have that as a basis of those things. But this is what we must absolutely be very clear. And this is, I think, Noah must take us seriously. Because every time when you read comments that he makes, and you must remember, in terms of the laws of our country, no matter how you do an investigation and all those things, after investigators are done, it comes to one guy.
Yeah.
When it comes to that one guy, and he must decide whether there's a case or not, regardless of what you have investigated. He's already making comments.
Yeah.
He's already making, maybe it look like, sometimes maybe it's just irregularity. Who told you? So how must I go and have confidence? Because in the report a case, the investigators will investigate and they will take it to this guy who have already taken a position.
Yes.
So we are clearly not taken serious in this country. So it's not a story of people did not know. In the national, there's case law history.
Yes.
The history demonstrates how the National Assembly have acted.
Yeah.
But the present also, in terms of the National Council, which is part of the same establishment, how is it possible that in the same, you are reading the Bible differently in the same?
Indeed, Doc. We go for a quick break and return for second half. We continue our conversation with Dr. Job Amupanda. Doc, prior to this chaotic Easter corruption shenanigans, you fought against, you actually urged us as a country to pay attention, close attention to FIMA, the financial, I can't remember how to, but it's the pension reservation or preservation issue that is being mooted now by government or by NAMFISA and others, to say that 75% of your pension may not be claimed before the age of 55, no matter what happens. What are your specific discontent with that?
The specific discontent comes from two levels. One is that the general orientation with the treasury as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm generally very suspicious of how these guys did this whole thing. You must remember that, take for example, when the SME bank was closed, who was one of the last people to withdraw his money?
Yeah.
The president of a country. So it means the president, how did he know that the bank was closed and he managed to withdraw his money? And it's the Bank of Namibia that was doing that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, then there's an amendment to the Act.
Yeah.
An amendment to the Act removes the age limit. You know, there was a specific age limit because they have the person in mind who they want to do this in the Bank of Namibia, so they wanted to do this. I'm now giving you a greater picture of what is happening as far as the finance, the financial model and outlook and the financial leadership of our country. And you could see how they handle the SME bank matter. And you can see how they are doing with these things of Bank of Namibia. And I still keep saying, and it's such an unfortunate situation where on one hand, you can see the knife. I have that big knife called onkonda. So it cuts. In Windhoek they call it tuekant. Yeah. So yes. On one hand, you are very excited about a middle-aged woman in the name of Leon Dunn, who was appointed as deputy governor. You are celebrating that. And on the other hand, you know exactly what has happened. It's to remove her from FIC, Financial Intelligence Center. And then she will be the deputy governor giving speeches and cutting ribbons and getting reports, going to State House, but not involved in the nitty-gritty, because you must, for example, for Fishrod, the FIC played a very, under Leon, it played a very important role there in terms of doing the, and as we observe all this shenanigan, and you can understand that something is not right with this thing. They were projecting FIMA as an amalgamation of all these various instruments that are brought together for them to be able to do that. So we have an ideological problem with the general outlook, the neoliberal outlook of our treasury. So in other words, they have an orientation towards cutting the social spending. Yeah, you need to cut the social spending. Yeah. It's almost like what has happened with the structural adjustment program. But you can also see the education and the orientation of these people that are leading us in the general finance orientation. You can see with the liquidation of the institutions of the public enterprises, it's all part of this ideological orientation that remove from the people and have a model and assumption that work for you. You must manage it. It's like you bring in a person in the room, is very messy. Instead of understanding what is there, their orientation is to remove these things and put it outside. We're saying, hold on. Don't just remove, first understand what is there. So that is a general orientation that we have, the key objectives. And this is what people don't understand. Now, tomorrow, there was going to be an auction for debt. Like the government is going to go on tender and to say that I want to give me money, owe me. I want to owe you. So tomorrow what is basically going to happen, they are going to advertise this, they are going to do this tender, and I can guarantee you GIPF will be one of the in many pensions and banks will be those that are buying those government bonds. Tomorrow they are looking for 700 million. Okay? So they know very well because you see, for example, this pension, in terms of the current regulation, they can invest in equity. Yeah, in other words, listed on whatever Johannesburg Stock Exchange and all those things. That's one of the things that they can also do. But they can also invest in debt, okay? And they can also invest in unlisted investment, like what we all know about that. What is happening tomorrow is like that. It basically means that if pensions have more money, then they can take up more debt, you see? They can take up more debt. So in other words, if this regulation in the current format is passed, ultimately what it's going to do is that you are going to have a lot of money. Toivo worked at 21, is now 31. 10 years, worked at a nice company, used to save nicely, and then is about 1 million. We only give him 250,000, and 750 is going to be kept until 55. That is the best business transaction, because you know I have the money of this guy.
It's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed.
For the next 20 years or so.
They can now go and invest in those 4 areas of investment that they're going to do. It's not disputed. No one denied the fact that ultimately this regulation is going to increase it's going to increase the positionality, the financial position of this pension fund. For the politician in a broke government, it makes absolute sense that they have a whole schedule of these tenders of debt. Okay, so tomorrow they are looking, and I think in total is about 19 billion that they are looking through this through this instrument. So the first level is our ideological orientation of lazy people who don't want to grow the economy, who don't want to do, and you can see it from the before you even close, for example, Namibia, because that's a quick solution. What do? You close Namibia, and then you apparently cut off the Fed. But before that, we have not been told by any resolute leadership to say, as cabinet, we have taken a decision that all government employees, all parastatals, you must fly with Namibia. You understand? I have seen government officials. I flew with government officials in South African Airways from Windhoek to Johannesburg, but at the same time, but it's a parastatal that is paying. Yeah. So you could see clearly, it's almost like what's happening in the Institute of Higher Learning. You see, you look at your pie, how much of money is coming from students. So what's the solution? Increase the fees of students, then you can get more money. So lazy approach to managing the finances of our country have led us to this thing. So the lazy thought came across to say, aha, if we stop people from early withdrawals, it's going to strengthen our position in terms of, because by law they cannot just keep those money in their thing, they have to invest it. So in other words, and then you project it to say, no, it is for your best interest. How do you make a determination that life is going to be better at 55? Yeah. At 55, you are what? You are starting to be frail, you are starting to be forgetful. Yeah. That is why, in terms of the African orientation, this type of attitude to say life after 60, after retirement, we have people who are building houses at 60. Yeah. It's the biggest failure in our culture. A 60-year-old trying to buy a Land Cruiser, trying to build a house, and they come from Windhoek and they want wanting to think that they are the big bosses, but they are building houses at 60. At the age of 60. Nobody built houses at 60. It's because of this pension orientation. Yeah. We are not saying the idea of pension is not good, but this whole thinking that they apparently care about us, I mean, it's a hoax.
I hear you. The last question, Doc, before we close off, is you seem, Job Amupanda seems to be back. The Job Amupanda of just before a year ago, the one on the other side of a year ago, seems to be back. You seem to be the vintage Job Amupanda, the activist, is back. You seem to enjoy this more than you enjoy some of these things that you were thrown in, Mayor of Windhoek and stuff like that. Is this sort of what you enjoy most?
Well, I have accepted that I'm always going to be an activist. And what has happened at Windhoek is because of my activism. And doing activism in Windhoek, when people are very shocked about it, and then they realize things can change, they say, hey, whoa, let's stop this guy. Let's stop this guy. Before you know it, the whole building will be on fire. It is not necessarily whether I'm back or not. We've always been very clear about two things. We must provide information and inspiration. For us to complete the incomplete project of liberation means that we must do those two things. We seriously provide information. That's what we do every time. So when we are free, we are not thinking about fornication. When we are free, we are thinking about what is it that we need to mobilize, you know? And it's very important to give information to people. And once you have given them information, then you give them direction. That is why we give the welcoming remarks, and people want us to participate in the plenary, in the breakaway session. No, we give the opening remarks, and so that you can digest, and then we come and give the concluding remarks. We simply just tell you that these guys are going to steal your money, your pension. And then you want, I cannot participate in the nitty-gritties. I've already told you what's going to happen. Discuss, engage, and so that we can come and do the concluding remarks. It's the same thing with this. People want me to participate in what is Noah saying. No, we just told the people of Namibia that these guys the money has been stolen, and they are hiding it. It's up to Noah and them, who must do what they are paid to do those things. Yeah. We will come and do the concluding remarks. We are just checking them, all of them, from Kachavivi to Noah. We're just checking them. Oh, okay, and seeing exactly what's going to happen. So in our concluding remarks, we will be able to give direction to the country that what is it that should happen. And this is what is primarily important to us. We want many young men and women who are sitting at home to understand that to give direction to your country, you don't need to have a position.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we go into those positions to disrupt and to provide hope, but we can provide direction to the country. And I'm really trying to say it in such a way so that it doesn't become as if it's boastful, and that's not what we do. But we are not going to wait to be 60, to be 55 to run the country. We must run the country now, you know. Yes. And we're always saying that not the president. It's almost like we're in a building. There's 2 floors. Yes. President is at the 2nd floor. We are at the ground floor. Yeah. So there's no difference. We're in the same building. In fact, if I shout enough, and man, I'm sure he's going to be able to hear that. Yeah. But in conclusion, is that we are taken for a ride by these guys.
Yeah.
And their best hope and bet every day is that our people are not aware. So we want to thank many young men and women who out of patriotism and love for their country, they make a value judgment and they see what is wrong and they bring this information to us. And they do it in the most sophisticated way.
Yes.
Sometimes because they would give to a taxi driver and I'll get into a taxi and I'll get the document.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will even post it on the post office. So sometimes they will go to church and then they will meet there, or sometimes we'll go to a club. So we want to encourage those of you, many young men and women in our country. So whatever you see that is going wrong, tell us so that we can run the country properly. Whether it's a Namibian son in the sales and marketing department. So whatever it is that happens, so we need to lead the country. Let's not wait for tomorrow. We are in charge of our country now and we'll give the direction. And this is not something major. That's just what we do.
Doctor,
okay.
We appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, man.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
That was Dr. Job Amupanda of the Affirmative Repositioning Movement telling us about what is happening at Parliament and also regarding FIMA. Thank you for watching and good night.